The champagne flute slipped from my trembling fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom like my heart in that instant. There, across the sea of tuxedos and gowns, Mason, my Mason, the man I was about to marry, pressed his lips to another's in a kiss that stole the breath from my lungs. "I do," he had whispered to me just hours ago in rehearsal, but now those words mocked me as I watched him seal a vow with someone else. I froze, the world tilting on its axis as the orchestra swelled into some saccharine rendition of Canon in D. Guests milled about, oblivious, their laughter a dull roar in my ears. The man in Mason's arms was tall, broad-shouldered, with that effortless Wall Street polish, dark hair slicked back, a jawline sharp enough to cut glass. I'd seen him before, fleetingly, at one of those rooftop parties in Soho where Mason swore it was just networking. His name was Ethan, I think. Or was it Evan? It didn't matter. What mattered was the way Mason's hand cupped the back of his neck. Possessive, hungry, like he was staking a claim he'd hidden from me for God knows how long. My chest tightened, a vice of betrayal squeezing until I could taste bile. "Run," screamed the voice in my head, the one that had kept me safe through foster homes and failed auditions and the endless grind of chasing dreams in this unforgiving city. Scream. Shatter the illusion for every soul in this gilded cage. But I didn't. I stood there, invisible in the shadows of a potted fern, my cummerbund suddenly too tight, my polished Oxfords rooted to the spot. And in that silence, something cracked open inside me, not just pain, but a fragile spark of clarity. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of me, unraveling from the threads he'd woven around my life. The ceremony was in 20 minutes. I could still taste the salt of our morning coffee on my tongue, the way he'd kissed my temple and murmured, "Today's the day we make it real. Ali, real." What a joke. We'd met 3 years ago at a dive bar in the East Village, both of us nursing wounds from exes who couldn't handle the messiness of loving a man in a world that still whispered slurs under its breath. Mason was the steady one, architect by trade, with blueprints that turned chaos into beauty. He saw potential in my half-finished screenplays, the ones gathering dust on my laptop while I slung lattes at a cafe in Chelsea. "You're going places," he'd say, his green eyes locking onto mine with that intensity that made my knees weak. We built a life in a walk-up in Harlem, weekends hiking in the Palisades, holidays with his boisterous Irish family upstate who pretended my queerness was just a phase they'd outgrow. Or maybe they wouldn't. I stopped asking. But now, as the best man, my oldest friend from Juilliard, Theo, clapped me on the shoulder, oblivious to the storm raging behind my smile. I wondered how many lies I'd swallowed to get here. The ring box burned in my pocket, a platinum band engraved with "Forever Starts Now." I'd saved for months, skimping on takeout, pouring every tip into making it perfect. For him. Always for him. "Oliver, buddy, you look like you saw a ghost," Theo said, his voice cutting through the haze. He was all broad smiles and bow ties, the kind of guy who believed in happy endings because his own had come easy, a Broadway understudy gig and a boyfriend who wrote for The New Yorker. I forced a laugh, brittle as autumn leaves crunching underfoot in Central Park. Just nerves. You know me, stage fright even off-Broadway. He bought it, pulling me into a hug that smelled of bourbon and cologne. "You're gonna nail this. Mason's the luckiest bastard alive." Luckiest. Yeah. As Theo wandered off to corral the flower girls, I slipped toward the French doors, the cool autumn air slapping my face like a wake-up call. Manhattan sprawled below, a glittering beast of steel and ambition, the Empire State Building piercing the bruised purple sky. From up here, on the edge of Fifth Avenue, our lives looked small, two specks in a constellation of 8 million strangers. But down there, in the subways and stoops and hidden alleys, I'd found pieces of myself. The kid from Ohio who ran away at 17, the barista who'd memorized every customer's order, the writer who'd poured his soul into stories no one read. Mason had been my anchor, or so I thought. Now he was the weight dragging me under. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over his name. Text him? Call it off? The betrayal replayed in my mind, each second etching deeper. But then I remembered the way he'd held me after my mom's funeral last year, the one we'd buried in silence because she never knew about us, never wanted to. He'd driven through the night from a job site in Brooklyn, showing up at the crematorium with coffee and a quiet, "I'm here." That man existed. The one kissing a stranger? A ghost. Maybe. Or worse, a truth I'd ignored. The door creaked behind me. "Ollie, there you are." Mason's voice, warm as ever, wrapped around me like smoke. I turned, and there he was, impeccable in his midnight blue suit, tie loosened just enough to hint at vulnerability. His smile faltered when he saw my face. "Hey, what's wrong? You okay?" For a heartbeat, I wanted to hurl it all at him. The shattered glass, the stolen kiss, the years I'd given without question. But the words lodged in my throat, heavy as lead. Instead, I stepped closer, letting him pull me into his arms. He smelled like sandalwood and secrets. Just overwhelmed, I murmured into his shoulder. "This city. This life. Us." He chuckled softly, his breath stirring my hair. "Good overwhelmed, I hope. Because in 10 minutes, you're stuck with me forever. Forever." The word echoed hollowly. As the officiant called us back inside, I followed, my silence a shield, a sword, a fragile truce with the pain. The procession began, violins weeping, guests rising like waves. I walked the aisle alone in my thoughts, Mason's hand in mine a lifeline or a noose. Vows exchanged in a blur, promises of fidelity, of building dreams from ruins. When he slid the ring on my finger, his eyes met mine with that same intensity, and I wondered if he could see the fracture lines spiderwebbing across my soul. The reception blurred into toasts and dances, laughter masking the ache. I caught glimpses of the stranger, Ethan, lurking at the bar, his gaze lingering on Mason a beat too long. But I said nothing, drank nothing, danced with aunts and cousins who cooed over how perfect you two look, perfect. A facade as thin as rice paper. By midnight, as fireworks cracked over the East River, courtesy of Mason's firm, celebrating some merger, I slipped away again. This time to the hotel's rooftop garden, where ivy clung to iron trellises and the city hummed below like a lover's whisper. I leaned on the railing, the wind whipping my jacket, tears finally carving paths down my cheeks. Not sobs, New Yorkers didn't sob in public, but a quiet unraveling, stitch by stitch. Footsteps. Theo. Again, with 2 fingers of scotch. "Spill it, Oliver. You've been a ghost all night." I took the glass, the burn steadying me. "Mason. He's cheating." Or was. I saw them, right before the ceremony. Theo's face crumpled, then hardened. Jesus. Why didn't you stop the wedding? Make a scene. I shook my head, staring at the lights twinkling like fallen stars. Because that wouldn't fix it. It wouldn't bring back the man I thought he was. Or the one I want to be without him. He pulled me into another hug. Fierce this time. You're stronger than you know, man. Always have been. Stronger. Maybe. As the night wore on, guests thinning, Mason found me there, his tie fully undone now, eyes glassy from champagne. "Ali, come dance with me." One last time as almost Miller's. I almost laughed at the slip, his last name, not mine. But I went, letting him spin me under the string lights, his hand warm at my waist. In that moment, I forgave nothing, but I held on. For the memories. For the boy who'd believed in us. For the silence that, strangely, felt like power. We honeymooned in the Hamptons, a gift from his parents. A sprawling beach house with salt-stiffened curtains and waves crashing like accusations. Mason was attentive, almost too much. Sunrise jogs on the dunes, lobster rolls from a shack in Montauk, whispered apologies for being distant lately with work. I nodded, smiled, let the sun bleach the betrayal from my skin. But at night, when he slept, I'd wander the widow's walk, staring at the Atlantic's endless black, wondering if love was a tide, pulling you under, then spitting you out remade. Back in the city, the routine resumed. My shifts at the cafe, his late nights at the office. But the silence grew roots, twisting through our apartment. To catch him on calls, voice low and urgent. "Not now, Evan. He's home," and pretend I hadn't heard. We'd make love, tender, urgent, and I'd chase the ghost of who we were, only to wake to the echo of that kiss. It built this unspoken war. A forgotten anniversary dinner. A fight over my wasted potential scripting indie shorts instead of something real. He accused me of drifting. I accused him of walls. But never the truth. Never Evan. The breaking point came in February. Snow blanketing the city like a shroud. I'd come home early from a pitch meeting, my first real break. A short film greenlit by a queer indie collective in Brooklyn. Mason was there, earlier than usual, pacing the living room with a bottle of scotch half empty on the coffee table. "We need to talk," he said, voice raw. My heart plummeted. "About us. This distance." He ran a hand through his hair, the one gesture that always undid me. "I love you, Ali. God, I do. But I've been unfair. There's someone else. Has been, off and on. Evan." From the firm, the name landed like a slap. I nodded, slow, as if I'd known it all along, which I had. "The wedding. I saw you." His eyes widened, color draining. "You. Why didn't you say?" "Because I was ashamed." I whispered, the words tumbling free at last. Ashamed of loving someone who could do that. Ashamed of staying. He reached for me, but I stepped back. "Ali, please." It was a mistake. The stress. The merger. "Stop." My voice cracked, but held. "It's not the merger. It's you. Choosing him over us. Even for a second." We talked or argued until dawn, snow piling against the windows like unspoken regrets. He begged for counseling, for time. I listened, the silence now a bridge instead of a wall. But deep down, I knew this was the fork. Stay and drown in half-truths. Leave and learn to swim alone. I chose the water. The lease was up in April, cherry blossoms unfurling along the Hudson like hesitant promises. I packed while Mason was at work, books first. The screenplays he'd mocked tucked into a box labeled Dreams. Not dust. Photos went last. Us at Pride. Rain-soaked and triumphant. Christmas in the Adirondacks. Mittens and mistletoe. Each one a stab. But I wrapped them in tissue, gentle as burying the dead. Theo helped, hauling boxes down the narrow stairs to a U-Haul that reeked of diesel and new beginnings. Couch surfing at my place till you find something, he said, slamming the tailgate. And hey, that film's gonna kill it. Focus on that. I nodded, throat tight. Thanks, man. For everything. He punched my arm. Like, don't thank me yet. Brooklyn's got drag brunches and dive bars that'll mend a broken heart faster than therapy. Brooklyn. The word tasted like possibility. Grittier than Harlem's polish. Alive with artists and activists who wore their scars like badges. My new sublet was a railroad apartment in Bushwick. Walls paper-thin and graffiti-tagged fire escapes. But the rent was half, and the L train dropped me at the cafe in 20 minutes. I dove into the film, Echoes, a story of two men chasing echoes of lost love across the subway lines. Art imitating life, bleeding onto the page. Mason called daily at first, voicemails thick with remorse. I miss your coffee breath in the morning. Come home. Ollie. I listened in the tub. Bubbles popping like doubts. Then deleted them. Texts followed. Articles on queer couples rebuilding. Links to couples retreats in the Catskills. I read them on stoops. Pigeons cooing judgment. And felt a pang. Not for him. Exactly. But for the future we'd sketched on napkins over diner eggs. Evan surfaced once. A LinkedIn message that popped up like a bad penny. Heard about you and Mason. Sorry if I caused pain. Didn't know he was engaged. I blocked him, but not before wondering what lies Mason had spun. The firm? The merger? Or just the oldest excuse? It's complicated. Spring thawed the city, and with it, me. I met Lena at a poetry slam in a warehouse off the J/M. Fiery redhead with a tattoo of Audre Lorde on her forearm, directing shorts that tackled intersectional queer joy. Your script's got teeth, she said over IPAs, her laugh cutting through the bass. Raw, but hopeful. Like if Whitman hooked up with Scorsese. We collabed, her visuals, my words. Late nights in her loft, storyboarding on butcher paper, takeout cartons piling like props. It was platonic, electric, the kind of friendship that stitched wounds without asking permission. You're healing, you know, she said one night as we watched dailies on her ancient Mac. A character, mine, really, walked away from a lover at dawn. The skyline blurring into forgiveness. Healing, I echoed, pausing the footage. The actor's face mirrored my own, eyes shadowed, but lifting. Yeah. Not over it. Through it. She was right. The film wrapped in June, premiering at Outfest in a sweaty theater on Fifth Avenue. Theo brought his boyfriend, a cluster of Juilliard alums, even Mason, uninvited, but there in the back row, alone. I spotted him as the credits rolled, applause thundering like rain on tin. Our eyes met across the dimness, question hanging, what now? After, at the after party in a rooftop speakeasy, he cornered me by the railing. That was incredible, Ali. You. You're incredible. The city sprawled below, fireworks for the 4th popping early over the river. Thanks, I said, sipping a gin fizz that burned sweet. Means a lot, he shifted, hands in pockets. I've been seeing someone. Therapist. And Evan. It's over. For good. I nodded. No surprise. No sting. Good for you. Can we? He trailed off, green eyes searching mine. Try again. The old me would have crumbled, chased the spark. But the new one, the one forged in silence and subway confessions, saw clearly. Mason, we were real once. Beautiful, even. But that was then. I'm not the same guy who stood in that ballroom and swallowed his heart. He deflated, a blueprint crumpling. I get it. I do. Just know I loved you. Love you still. I know, and I did. Love wasn't the villain here. It was the teacher, rough-handed but kind. He left with a hug that lingered, then faded into the night. I stayed, letting Lena drag me to the dance floor, bodies pressing in rhythm to some indie electronica track about letting go. Sweat slick, alive, I moved, not away from pain, but toward something brighter. Summer baked the burrows, asphalt shimmering like mirages. Echoes won a jury prize, a crystal thing that caught rainbows on my windowsill, and suddenly, doors cracked open, agents emailing, a pilot script optioned by a streaming service. I quit the cafe, traded aprons for laptop stickers, wrote in coffee shops where baristas knew my order by heart. That's where I met Julian. He was a photographer, mid-30s, with salt and pepper curls and a camera slung like an old friend. We'd bonded over a spilled oat milk latte, his fault, my dry cleaning bill, and ended up at a falafel joint in Bed-Stuy, debating Ansel Adams versus Nan Golden. You capture the grit, I said, wiping tahini from my chin. The beauty in the broken, he smiled, slow, like dawn over the bridges. And you write it. The stories we don't tell ourselves. Dates followed. Kayaking on the Gowanus Canal. Toxic waters be damned. Picnics in Prospect Park where he'd shoot candids of me reading Kerouac aloud. He was divorced from a woman back when he was figuring out the labels with a kid in college upstate. A daughter who FaceTimed him mid-meal with tales of queer theory seminars. No rush. No possession. Just presence. One evening, as we wandered the High Line, rails reclaimed as gardens, wildflowers nodding in the breeze, he stopped, framing me through his lens. Hold that, he murmured. Click. Perfect. Why? I asked, lowering my book. Because you're lit from within. Like you've been through fire and come out gold. I kissed him then, soft against the hum of tourists and trains below. No grand gestures, no shattered glass. Just lips meeting, tentative, true. Fall crept in, leaves turning the parks to fire. Mason texted sporadically, saw your pilot promo. Proud. And I replied politely, boundaries firm as Brooklyn brownstones. Therapy became my ritual. A queer-affirming shrink in Park Slope who unpacked the silence I'd weaponized. It wasn't weakness, she said, over chamomile steam. It was survival. And now, it's sovereignty. Echoes streamed nationwide. Reviews trickling in. A poignant queer odyssey through betrayal and rebirth. Viewers messaged, strangers in Ohio, like the boy I'd been, thanking me for the mirror. One night, Scrolling DMs. I found Mason's. Watched it. Cried through the whole thing. That's us, isn't it? I typed back. It was. Now it's mine. Winter hit hard. Blizzards burying the streets in white. Julian and I hunkered in his loft in Williamsburg. Exposed brick and Polaroids pinned like constellations. Baking bread that filled the air with yeast and warmth. His daughter visited. A whirlwind of piercings and pronouns. Declaring my script low-key iconic. We three shoveled sidewalks. Built snowmen with scarves for ties. Laughed until our sides ached. On New Year's, as the ball dropped on a TV flickering blue, Julian pulled me close. To steps forward, he toasted. Champagne bubbling like hope. To healing, I added. Clinking glasses. The kiss that followed was a vow. Not etched in platinum, but in the quiet choices. Staying silent to listen to my own voice. Walking away to find my stride. Manhattan, with its relentless pulse, had witnessed my unraveling. Now, it bore witness to the weaving back together. But life, being the dramatic bitch it is, had one more twist. It started with a call in March, the kind that upends your carefully stacked Jenga tower of progress. Theo's voice, edged with panic. Ollie, it's Mason. Car accident. Of town. He's in bad shape. The world narrowed to the phone's glow. My loft suddenly too small. Air too thin. What happened? Ice on the FDR. Skidded into a barrier. There at Mount Sinai. Coma, they said. Fractured skull. I was there in 20. Cab fare be damned. The ER a fluorescent hell of beeps and bleach. Mason's parents waited in the hall. Maureen with rosary beads clicking like accusations. Patrick pacing in his Mets cap. They nodded stiffly. We'd never been close. Their Catholicism a chasm bridged only by my silence at family dinners. He's stable, the doctor said. A harried woman with a hijab pinned neat. But the brain swelling. We wait. The room was sterile. Machines humming lullabies. Mason lay still. Tubes snaking like vines. His face bruised purple. The man who'd built skylines reduced to fragility. I sat, holding his hand, cold, limp, memories flooding. First fight over burnt toast. Laughing until we cried. Road trip to Niagara. Fog veiling the falls like secrets. Hours blurred. Maureen brought coffee, black as regret. He talked about you, after. Said he was sorry. Wanted to make it right. I nodded. Throat knotted. I know. Patrick clapped my shoulder. Gruff. You're good for him, son. Always were, son. The word landed soft. An olive branch from a tree I'd thought barren. Evan arrived at dawn. Trench coat rumpled. Eyes red-rimmed. We eyed each other across the bed. Rivals turned reluctant allies. He pushed me away. You know, Evan muttered, voice low. After you left. Said he couldn't live half a life anymore. I absorbed it. No venom left. Good. We shared shifts. Me mornings. Him evenings. Stories swapped in whispers, how Mason mentored Evan at the firm. Late nights blurring lines. How he'd proposed to me on the Brooklyn Bridge. Knees buckling in the wind. Common ground emerged. A man flawed. Fierce. Worth fighting for even if not together. The swelling receded by week's end. Fingers twitched. Eyes fluttered. Ollie, croak. First word. Here. I squeezed his hand. Tears hot. Rest. Recovery was a marathon, rehab in Westchester, physical therapy that left him cursing in 3 languages. I visited weekends, Julian understanding without question. Go. Love doesn't clock out. We talk, raw, real. No vows renewed, but truths unearthed. His fear of vulnerability, rooted in a father's belt and a mother's prayers. My silence, a shield from abandonment's echo. You're free now, he said one afternoon, wheelchair by the window, Hudson glittering below. Don't chain yourself to my mess. I'm not, I replied, honest. I'm choosing to be here. As a friend. Friend. The word fit, loose and kind. Spring bloomed again. Mason discharged to his parents upstate. I threw myself into the pilot, Bridges, a series about queer New Yorkers crossing divides. Literal. Emotional. Lena directed the table red. Julian shot stills, his lens catching the spark in my eyes. One shoot day, rain lashing the set on a rooftop in Tribeca. Theo pulled me aside. Mason's engaged. To a nurse from rehab. Guy named Riley. Surprise. Then a quiet bloom of peace. He deserves that. Theo grinned. And you? That silver fox. Julian? We're building. That night, over Ty in Julian's loft, I told him about Mason's news. He listened. Fork paused midair. Proud of you, he said simply. For letting go without bitterness. We made love then, slow, exploratory, bodies mapping new territories. No rush to labels, just the poetry of touch. His fingers tracing my collarbone, my lips on the scar from his divorce papers ink. Summer festivals called, Bridges screened at Frameline, cheers echoing in the Castro. Back home, Pride marched Rainbow Rivers down Fifth, me and Julian hand in hand, his daughter waving a flag from the float. Dads? She teased later, over Pyregees in Greenpoint. Not yet, Julian laughed, but his eyes held the question. Fall brought harvest moons and deadlines. Mason's wedding invite arrived, simple cardstock, upstate barn. Your presence means the world, scrawled in his hand. I went, alone. The ceremony was small. Hay bales, string lights, Riley in a linen suit, beaming. Mason, cane-assisted but steady, vowed, through storms and silences. Their kiss chased, sure, stirred no ache, only applause. After, under oaks shedding gold, he hugged me tight. Thank you. For everything. Same, I said. Build something beautiful, Winter whispered in. Holidays hybrid. Julian's family Zoom from Seattle. My chosen crew at a potluck in Bushwick. Lena's lax. Theo's eggnog. Stories stacking like gifts. On Christmas Eve. Snow dusting the stoop. Julian knelt by the tree. A Charlie Brown pine we'd scavenged. Marry me, ring simple. Silver. Engraved, steps together. Tears pricked. Yes, the wedding was ours. City Hall. Then a block party in the lot below. Tacos from a truck. A playlist of Ella and Eartha. Friends toasting under lanterns. No plaza grandeur. No shattered flutes. Just vows in fluorescent light. I choose you. Every dawn. As we danced in the street. Manhattan's pulse syncing with ours. I glanced up. Stars faint behind light pollution. But there. Silence had been my first step. This. The leap. Yet, in the quiet hours. I wondered. What if I'd screamed that day? Shattered the illusion? Maybe a different story. But this one, mine, woven from betrayal's thread into resilience's tapestry, felt right. Human. American as apple pie and endless reinvention. And in Julian's arms, under the indifferent stars, I finally believed healing wasn't absence of pain. It was presence of self, of love, of the city that broke and birthed us all. But stories don't end neat, like credits rolling on a feel-good rom-com. They loop, echo, demand sequels. 6 months post-vows, Julian and I were knee-deep in newlywed bliss, renovating his loft into ours, arguing over paint swatches. He wanted sage. I pushed for cobalt and weekend getaways, Poconos versus Portland. The pilot aired to buzz. Critics called it the queer Fleabag New York needed, streams spiking overnight. Suddenly, I had an agent, a publicist, offers for book deals on my journey. That's when the letter came. Handwritten, postmarked from a town I'd never heard of, Elmira, upstate. No return address, but the script was Mason's, familiar loops from love notes and lease signings. Ali, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Cancer, pancreatic, stage 4. Fast. Riley's a rock, but he doesn't know the half. Needed to tell you. That accident? Karma? Maybe. Woke me up. Made me chase what matters. You were the first to show me love could be home, not just hiding. Forgive me, not for staying, but for seeing you fully now. Enclosed, the blueprints. For that community center you dreamed of, queer youth hub in Harlem. Build it. For us all. Forever grateful. Mason. The enclosure. Rolled sheets. Elevations and floor plans. His signature flourish at the bottom. A rec space with stages for open mics. Quiet rooms for counseling. A garden rooftop for stargazing in the concrete jungle. Titled Echo's Haven. I sat on the fire escape, paper trembling in the breeze, tears salting the ink. Julian found me there, coffee in hand. Bad review. Worse. I handed him the letter, words blurring. He read, face softening. Shit. You okay? No. Yes. God. I don't know. Sobs came then, ugly and unscripted, his arms a harbor. We flew upstate the next day, Riley's invite, funeral small, like their wedding. Barn again, now strung with white lights against April rain. Eulogies from colleagues, a cousin's fiddle tune. Riley, hollow-eyed but holding, gripped my hand. He talked about you till the end. Said you saved him. In a way. The feeling's mutual, I whispered. After, over pie in the kitchen, Riley slid a USB. His files. For the center. He finished them last week. Back in the city, grief settled like fog off the river. I mourned not the mason of betrayal, but the mosaic, architect, lover, flawed seeker. Julian mourned with me, nights of takeout and old photos, his thumb tracing my knuckles. This doesn't erase us, he'd say. It adds. Lena jumped on the center idea. Non-profit gold. Tie it to the series episode on legacy. We fundraised. GoFundMe exploding with Echo's fans. A gala at the Apollo with queer icons toasting bridges built. Ground broke in July. Harlem soil turned under summer sun. My speech shaky. This isn't about one story. It's all of ours. The silences, the shouts, the steps toward light. Julian shot the ceremony, his lens eternal witness. That night, in our bed, sage walls glowing soft, we made plans. Adoption seminars, a book tour blending memoir and blueprint. Kids? He asked, fingers in my hair. Someday. When the world's ready for two dads with neuroses and Netflix deals. He laughed. Lo. It's ready for you. Autumn leaves fell like confetti as the center rose. Beams hoisted, walls whispering welcome. I wrote there. In a corner office Mason had sketched, for the storyteller, scenes of youth finding voice. A trans kid scripting their truth. A foster teen painting murals of chosen families. My own words flowed freer. A novel brewing. Silent vows. Betrayal's aftermath through a lens of grace. Thanksgiving brought Julian's daughter home. Now our kid. Hugs fierce. She helped paint the center's lobby. Rainbow stripes bold. Dad 1 and Dad 2, she teased. Roller dripping. You're disgustingly cute. Disgustingly? Julian feigned offense. Flicking paint at her. Over turkey in our loft. Catered. Because who has time? Theo raised a glass. To echoes that build. Not break. Clink. Laughter. Love. Winter solstice. The center's soft opening. Open mic under chandeliers Mason designed. Stars projected on the dome. I emceed. Voice steady. Tonight, we honor a man who drew lines between hearts. Mason Miller, gone too soon, but etched forever. A performer took the stage. A young poet, eyes like mine at 17. I came from silence, but here, I sing. Applause thundered, my chest full. Julian beside me, hand warm. Proud, he mouthed. Outside, snow swirled, Manhattan muffled in white. We walked home, him, me, daughter arm in arm, fire escapes festooned with wreaths. Happy? Julian asked, breath fogging. Utterly, but dawn brings its reckonings. Spring equinox. A package. Riley's. Final from Mason's estate. Inside our wedding ring. Polished. With a note. Wear it as reminder. Love bends. Doesn't break. Or melt it down. Yours now. I held it to light. Facets catching fire. Julian watched. What'll you do? Melt? No. I slipped it on a chain, beside Julian's dual talismans. Keep it close. Let it teach. The novel sold. Auction feverish. Tours loomed. Coasts. Heartland. Reading in that Ohio town I'd fled. Come, I asked Julian. Every mile. Summer solstice. Center grand opening. Ribbon cut by Riley, now partner in the nonprofit. Crowds swelled, politicos, artists, kids with signs build bridges. My keynote, Betrayal taught me silence. Love, the roar that follows. Q&A, a hand rose, boy, maybe 20, foster scars in his stance. How do you heal when it feels impossible? I paused. City humming beyond. One step. Silent at first. Then shared. You're not alone. He nodded. Eyes wet. Mine too. Night fell. Gala afterglow. Dancing with Julian slow. Under disco balls I whispered. Thank you. For seeing me. Whole. His kiss. Anchor. Spark. Always. Yet in quiet. I traced the chain's weight. Mason's ghost lingered. Not haunt. But harmony. Betrayal's scar. Faded to story. Manhattan, eternal witness, pulsed on. And I, Oliver Hale, writer, husband, builder, walked its veins, healed not despite the break, but because of it. The book tour kicked off in September, a whirlwind of airports and anecdotes, hotel rooms echoing with half-written sequels. First stop, Seattle, Julian's old haunt, rain-slick streets, coffee thick as plot twists. Readings packed indie shops, fans queuing for signatures. Your silence scene? Me? Last year. Or Mason's like my ex. But the healing? Hope. Julian tagged along when he could. Shooting candids for the dust jacket. Me mid-gesture. Passion etched. His daughter joined for the West Coast leg. Crashing panels with Gen Z fire. Queer narratives need more mess. Y'all are killing it. East Coast blurred. Boston's cobblestones. Philly's murals. Philly hit hard. A signing at a queer bookstore. Shelves groaning with voices like mine. A man approached. Late 40s. Salt hair. Eyes crinkled kind. Oliver? I'm David. New Mason. Back in college. Cornell. I stiffened. Pen pausing. Yeah. He slid a photo across. 3 boys. Dorm room grins. Arms slung. Mason Center. Me absent but present in the echo. He wrote me. Before. Said you were the one who got away. Then came back as better. David's story spilled. Mason's hidden struggles. Internalized shame from Bible Belt roots. Affairs as escape hatches. He changed. Because of you. Found peace. I pocketed the photo. Throat full. Thanks for saying. That night, in a B&B overlooking the school kill, Julian held me as rain pattered. Another ghost? A friendly one. I traced his jaw. Makes the mosaic clearer. DC. Brought politics. Panel at a Smithsonian affiliate on queer American resilience. Protests simmered outside. Rights rolled back in red states. Headlines screaming division. My talk wove personal to public. Silence isn't surrender. It's strategy, building from whispers to waves. A senator's aide cornered me after. Funding for centers like yours? Let's talk. Seeds sown. Bridges extended. New York homecoming. Union Square Barnes and Noble. Overflow crowd spilling to the plaza. Theo emceed. Jokes landing like old times. Lena filmed for the docuseries. Behind the blueprint. Julian's daughter read an excerpt. Voice steady. In the shatter, he found shards of self. After drinks at our haunt, the dive where Mason and I'd met, now irony-tinged nostalgia. Toasts to full circles. I raised mine. To the city that chews you up and spits you shiny. October chilled. Leaves carpeting Central Park like forgotten scripts. Back at Echo's Haven. Programs bloomed. Writing workshops led by alums. Art therapy for trauma survivors. I mentored Tuesdays. Kids spilling tales of coming out in Bible studies. Hiding under beds. One girl, Isha, 14, handed me pages. My dad's fight like yours did. But they stay. Is that enough? I read under desk lamp. Words raw. It's a start. Like steps. She hugged me fierce. You're like the uncle I never had. Uncle. The word warmed, hinting at futures. Thanksgiving loomed. Families fracturing nationwide. Turkey pardons masking deeper divides. Ours gathered. Julian's clan via video. My patchwork in the loft, Theo's crew. Lena's chaos. Riley up from Philly with his new partner. A barista with a laugh like bells. Table groaned. Turkey, tofuwalt. Pies from a Korean bakery. Stories swapped. Riley's on Mason's last days. He designed their forever home. Sketched it bedside. Gratitude circle. Candles flickering. For love that lingers. Lessons learned. Mine. For silence turned song. Winter gripped. Holidays hybrid again. Christmas at the center. Tree trimmed with donor ornaments. Carols queer infused. Jingle bells. Bats and spells. Kids perform skits. Foster elves saving Santa's workshop from bigots. Laughter echoed. Healing communal. New Year's. Rooftop with Julian. Ball drop distant thunder. Resolutions? He asked. Arms circling. More bridges. Deeper roots. Kiss at midnight. Fireworks blooming. His daughter texted. Parents of the year. Love y'all. Spring equinox. Book 2 contract. Voices from the vault. Haven stories anonymized into fiction. Writing retreat in the Palisades. Cabin by the cliffs. Waves crashing confession. Julian hiked with me. Camera clicking. Your muse. You. Forehead kiss. Salt tanged. Summer solstice. Haven's first anniversary. Gala under tents. Skyline aglow. Riley keynote. Mason built dreams in steel. Oliver. In souls. Dance floor packed. Me and Julian swaying to Coltrane. 1 year married, he murmured. Feels like always. Yet autumn whispered change. Doctor's call. Routine check. Irregularities. Biopsy. Waiting rooms blurred, irony's cruel callback. Julian held vigil. Daughter flying in. Results. Benign. Assist like a plot hole resolved. Relief crashed. Tears in the parking garage. Hugs bruising. Scared me, I admitted. Me too. His grip tightened. But we're solid. November elections loomed. Nation fracturing. Haven became sanctuary. Voter drives. Mental health hotlines humming. My op-ed in the Times. Queer silence in polarized times. From personal betrayal to civic voice. Responses flooded. Hate mail. But more invitations to TED. Grants pouring. Winter solstice. Center's holiday fair. Booths of zines and ziti. Ice rink makeshift. A kid skated wobbly, the boy from Q&A. Now volunteer. You were right, he yelled over music. Steps work. I laced up. Julian steadying. Glide. Falter. Laugh. Full circle. But epiphanies hide in ordinary. One dawn. Coffee brewing. Chain around neck glinting. Mason's ring. Julian's intertwined. Not competition, but chorus. I wrote that morning. Healing's not linear, a spiral, ascending through storms. Published. It resonated bestseller lists. Podcasts pleading. Fans at signings. Your spiral? Mine too. Julian, ever photographer, captured a portrait. Me at desk. Light slanting. Eyes alight. For the back flap, he said. The man who turned betrayal to beacon. Framed on our wall. Beside wedding vows and Haven blueprints. Manhattan marched on, subways surging. Sirens symphonies. Oliver, husband. Mentor. Survivor walked its grid. Silence long shed for song. And in every step, gratitude. For the shatter that sparked. The love that sustained. The city that, in its brutal beauty, taught us all to rise. The spiral tightened in spring. A call from Ohio. Voice cracked. My father's sister, Aunt Clara. The one who'd sent birthday cards with $5 clipped inside. Your ma's gone. Ali. Stroke. Funeral Saturday. Gone. The word hollowed me. Mom, distant star. Bible verses over phone lines. Never the full embrace. I'd left at 17. Bus ticket burning. Her last words. Pray on it, son. God's got a plan. Now, plan's punchline. Julian squeezed my hand. Go. We'll hold the fort. Flight to Dayton. Heart heavy as carry-on. Airport reunites. Cousins awkward. Uncles gruff. Clara hugged fierce. Missed you, boy. Cities win you up. Spittin' me back stronger. I quipped. Voice thin. Funeral home smelled of lilies and loss. Casket closed. Merciful. Eulogy duty fell to me. Family defaulting to the writer. Podium would warn. I gripped edges. She loved hymns. Amazing grace. Blind but now I see. Mom saw paths I couldn't, to New York. To love. To words. Her silence, not absence. Foundation. Sniffles. Nods. After cemetery mud-sucking shoes, Clara pulled me aside. She kept your letters. Proud. In her way. And this photo album. Yellowed. Baby me in her arms. Teen scowl at Thanksgiving. News clippings of echoes. Bridges. Tears traced. Why now? Wanted you to know. Before her plan took her. Back in the city. Album on coffee table talisman. Julian flipped pages with me. Look at that grin. Mini you. Daughter added stickers. Granny vibes. Healing layered, maternal ghost gentled. Summer scorched. Haven camp launched. Week-long for LGBTQ plus youth. Palisades base. I counseled Fireside. Betrayal's universal. Your narrative. One night. Under pines. Aisha, now 16, confided. My mom's disowning. For this girl. Rage simmered. Then resolve. We'll fight. Lawyers. Funds. Haven's got you. She leaned head on shoulder. Like family. It was. Fall foliage tour. Book 2 launch. Leaves framing readings. Boston again. David hosting, now friend via emails. Dinner after. Mason'd be proud. He is, I said. Chain glinting. Thanksgiving. Expanded table. Aisha fostered temporarily with us, court win. Haven advocacy. Her girl joined. Shy smiles over yams. Family's choice, Julian toasted. Clink. Chaos. Joy. Winter whispered weddings. Riley's remarriage. Vegas kitsch, Elvis officiant. Neon vows. We flew. Danced to Can't Help Falling. Love after loss, he said. Arm around new husband. Mason's gift. Ours deepened therapy tandem. Unpacking spirals. Your silence saved me, Julian admitted. Showed vulnerability's strength. New Year's. Dawn hike in the Palisades, snow crunching. Breath clouds. Vow renewal, he proposed. Ring glinting. Every day. Spring equinox. Aisha's adoption papers. Ours. Legal. Mom? Dad? She tested. Eyes bright. Whatever fits. Summer solstice. Haven expansion. Satellite in Brooklyn. Queer elder care. Groundbreaking. Me shovel first. From one man's blueprints to many's homes. Fall harvest moon. Novel 3 brewing. Spirals unwound. Collective voices. November chill. Midterms mended fractures, progress piecemeal. My TED Talk streamed, Silence to Symphony, reclaiming queer narratives. Views viral, invites global. Winter solstice, family solstice. Aisha's first holiday as Hail Julian. Tree baubled with her ornaments. Our rings, mom's photo smiling. One eve, loft quiet, I penned epilogue. Betrayal's day birthed this, love's layered, lives linked. Manhattan's gift, reinvention eternal. Julian read over shoulder. Publish. No. Live it. Dawn broke. City stirring. We three, family forged, stepped into light. Yet spirals turn. A year on. Package from Clara. Mom's Bible. Margins scripted prayers for my wandering boy. Last page. Forgive me, Ali. See you in grace. Tears anew, but grateful. I added it to the wall, mosaic complete. Manhattan, my crucible, pulsed, subways singing, sirens symphonies. Oliver, father, partner, Phoenix walked, whole. Silence, first step. Song, the symphony. And in every note, healing's hum.